Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is a metal monster known as M2 Wyvern. Global Mech Limited Company designed the robot Wyvern Model 2 to spy, attack, and exterminate. It looked amazing and it was ready to be tested, but an error happened. They lost control of it and it can be lethal until someone manages to disconnect its circuit. And M2 Wyvern is another example of Social Point creating monsters with amazing monster designs. Just look at this dragon, it is absolutely amazing. But anyways, we're here to analyze its stats. M2 Wyvern has a power of 3,509, and this is definitely a really high power. In terms of metal monsters, in terms of metal legendary monsters, however, it's not necessarily the highest. Of the 18 legendary metal monsters, this puts him in 8th place. Still, I have to emphasize, it is a really high power. It's just that there are so many metal legendary monsters that have a power of 3,575 or 3,542 that it pushes down M2 Wyvern into 8th place. His life, however, is nowhere near being good. It's 25,334. And for the most part, metal monsters tend to be really tanky, so this life actually puts him in 14th place, tied with monsters like Superdan and the Sentinel. Currently, the only two legendary metal monsters that have a lower life than M2 Wyvern are General Holter and Mechamancer. As for his speed, 3,388, it's also nowhere near being one of the highest. It actually puts him in 11th place, tied with monsters like Autex, Timerion, and Data Unit. So not a pretty amazing life, not a pretty amazing speed. His power, although it is pretty high, in terms of metal monsters, it's nowhere near being the highest. And as for his trait, he has immune to magnetizing, gives immunity to magnetism, which may or may not be good depending on who you ask. Lots of metal monsters have skills that magnetize, so even when it's a metal on metal battle, because of magnetization, it makes it so the skill isn't weak. However, in my opinion, I think it'd still be better to have traits like immune to stun or immune to freeze, or even something like hardened would have been better in my opinion. But let's go ahead and take a look at M2 Wyvern's skills. We have PH 25, MS 30 for the default skills, nothing special there. His special is SS 90, deals insane special damage to all enemies. It's an AoE that deals 90 damage, and this is exactly the kind of special you want to have on a monster who's meant to be a pure attacker. SS90 is a phenomenal special. It deals insane special damage. It's not even metal damage. So if you use this monster in Team Wars and you happen to get your special, you don't need to worry about that metal on metal action. 90 damage AoE, that is just phenomenal. In skills group 1, we have ME35S, MSS35D, and MS45. Nothing particularly too special about any of these skills, so let's move over to skills group 2. We start things off with ME55D. Deals heavy metal damage, May Day's target requires cooldown. It's a metal based attack that deals 55 damage to a single enemy, costs 31 stamina, has only a 1 turn cooldown, and it gives daze. There's honestly nothing really too amazing about the skill, so I would just completely disregard it. We have MSS30B. Deals low special damage to all enemies, may burn all targets, requires cooldown. This is a pretty nice AoE that you may or may not want to run. It does 30 damage, it costs 35 stamina, it has a 3 turn cooldown. I like that it's special based and not metal based, and the fact that it gives burning is great because no metal monster is immune to burning, and for the most part the monsters that are immune to burning tend to be fire monsters. There are a few exceptions like Apex and White Walker and a few dark monsters, so having an AoE burning skill can come in handy. M2 Wyvern's following skill is possibly one of my most favorite skills, MS65. Deals very heavy special damage, so it targets a single enemy for 65 damage, costs 28 stamina, and it has no cooldown. And this is another example of the skills you want to see in an attacker. Really high damage, 65, and no cooldown. So if you ever face off against an enemy Timerion, I think you know who to use. M2 Wyvern is going to be your go-to choice because MS65, with this monster's power, given a few strength runes, 1 or 2, this monster is strong enough to knock out enemies in one hit. He can definitely knock out Timerion in one hit because this is a special based attack and not a metal based attack. So you definitely want to run MS65. Next up is skills group 3, and we have a skill called ME55S. Deals heavy metal damage, may stun target, requires cooldown. This targets a single enemy dealing 55 damage, costs 31 stamina, and it only has a 1 turn cooldown. And even though this monster can be a pure attacker, I think it's always nice to err on the side of caution and have some sort of immobilizing skill. A single stun on a metal monster can come in handy. The only two metal monsters that are immune to stun are Draza and Metalhead, and I guess Timerion if you want to count them. However, to be fair, there's a handful of metal monsters that have hardened, so there's a 20% chance your stun might miss, but hey, it's better to be safe than sorry. Just in case for some reason your MS65 isn't strong enough to take him out, or your MS80 as you're gonna see, it's nice to have that chance to possibly immobilize him. His following skill is called MSS30SD. Deals low special damage to all enemies, removes 50% of stamina from all targets, requires cooldown. It's an AoE that deals 30 damage, costs 35 stamina, has a 3 turn cooldown, but this skill ultimately removes 50% of stamina from the enemy monsters. And if you're trying to decide between running AoE burning or AoE 50% stamina drain, I would go with the 50% stamina drain because this can easily combo with other monsters. Say for example it's a water metal war and you choose the infamous General Thetis and you start the game off with stamina devours and you drain all of the enemy stamina. And say for runes you decided to go 3 strength runes, so all of the enemy monsters would probably go before your M2 Wyvern. So then that means that all of the enemy monsters recharge, steps, so then you can just do your AoE 50% stamina drain. You're gonna go back to 0 stamina, which means when it goes back to General Thetis, she's free to recharge, and then all of the enemy monsters are gonna have to recharge again. I think it's pretty cool and amazing that we have a meta monster that has an AoE stamina drain, so it's pretty cool that Social Point is introducing that. If you guys can think of a meta monster that has an AoE stamina drain ability, be sure to let me know in the comments below, but nonetheless I really do believe this is a skill worth running. And lastly we have MS-80, deals insane special damage, requires cooldown, targets a single enemy dealing 80 damage, costs 28 stamina, and it has a 2-turn cooldown. And for an attacker, again this is a skill you want to see. 80 damage is really insane. You give this monster 2 strength runes, 3 strength runes, even if they're pretty low level, he's gonna have no trouble taking on even the tankiest of metal monsters. So my recommended skill set for this monster would be MS-80, ME-55S, MSS-30SD, and MS-65. And M2 Wyvern can definitely be used in Team Wars. You just do have to be a little careful because of his trait immune to magnetizing. There's plenty of metal monsters out there that are faster than M2 Wyvern and that can either stun them or possess them, so you do have to be careful. But if you're able to pair up this monster with an immobilizer that can for sure immobilize all of the enemy team, then you're gonna have yourself a really powerful attacker. As far as runes go, the majority of players can get away with 3 strength runes. If we're talking about players that have really high level runes like level 8, 9, or 10, then you're gonna need 2 strength runes and a speed rune. And with that being said, that is gonna conclude my analysis on M2 Wyvern, and I want to hear from all of you. What do you guys think about this monster? Do you think he's good? Do you think he's not so good? Compared to the other metal monsters, where do you think he ranks? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and also if you do know of a metal monster that has an AoE stamina drain, because no one's coming to my mind, be sure to let me know. And like always, also be sure to let me know who you want to see analyzed next. With that being said, I hope everyone has a great amazing day or a great amazing night. Remember to dream big and pursue your passions.